fellow travelers, Mark here with Wolters World, and today we're in Stratfod-upon-Avon here in England. And today I want to give you some advice if you're going to be coming to England and bringing your kids, because you know what? England is fantastic to bring the whole family, young or old. If you got small, little, tiny ones that are still crawling around, or even those cranky teenagers, there's stuff for them to enjoy when you're here. You can rent a car here, no big deal, and I'll talk about things you need to think about later. But the first thing I want to mention is if you're going to be renting a car here and you need a car seat, bring your own car seat. Bring your car seat from home. You know how it works. You can put it in there just fine. But if you're not going to bring your car seat and you're going to rent a car and get a car seat from them, make sure you put it in when you book that rental car that you need a car seat. Because if you wait until you get to Heathrow or you get to some other airport or some place to get a car seat, they might not have any there for you. So it's really important that you have that. I want to get that out of the way first. Also, for my son Caleb, who is an older kid now, let's say, there's one thing I recommend you looking into doing, and that is tours. Now, when I say tours, I'm talking about the walking tours kind of things, because they actually have some fun walking tours you can go through to get some of the kind of interesting stories about the different places you come to in England that really helps it come alive. But one I really recommend you do, no matter where you are, if they have one, are the kind of spooky ghost tour kind of things. I've done them in New York, they're here in Stratford, I've seen them in London. I mean, there's all kinds of them all over the place. But that's one thing that the teenagers that I have in my life, they've enjoyed those. So, you know, something for the very tiny ones in the car seats, but also something for those bigger ones as well. Another important thing to think about when you're bringing your kids to England is realizing there's a lot of history here that they've read about in school, they've heard about in, you know, YouTube videos and movies and stuff like this. Like this is Shakespeare's birth house in Stratfod-upon-Avon. And that's one thing I recommend you do. If you know what your kids learning in school, or you've had any stories that they liked back in the day and you want to relive those things, it's kind of a fun thing to do. And yes, sometimes it's platform 9 3/4 at King's Cross in London, but sometimes it's going to Shakespeare's house to see where they grew up, or maybe where Chaucer was. And so these kind of sites really put it in kind of perspective of what your kids learned at school, so they kind of go, oh, now I get it. And England has so many places you can do that it's well worth it. Now, another thing to do with your kids when you come to England is go to a show. And yes, you could go see a performance of Shakespeare if you like. That's an option. But I'm going to guess your kids probably don't want to relive their classroom experiences. So you can go to a show. Like we went to Matilda on the West End and had a great time when we were there. But what you see is there's going to be, you know, productions all around, from musicals to plays to all kinds of stuff. And you can get tickets to it. And the thing is, you don't just have to do professional kind of expensive ones like the West End. There's also amateur dramatics here, or amdrams as they like to call them. And you can actually go see local people playing in productions there. And it's kind of a fun thing. And I find it's a good kind of introduction in getting your kids to go to musicals or go to plays and stuff, because for them, you're doing it while you're on vacation. It's something cultural, and they're more likely to go for it versus if you tell them, hey, let's go to the local production here in town. They're like, oh, I want to stay and hang out with my friends. So that's one way you could get them to like get into the dramatics, let's say. Now, another thing I gotta tell you, when you bring your kids to England, don't miss out on like the little fun, like interactive museums. Sometimes with silly museums, yes, you can take them to the London Dungeon and the touristy, trappy things, but also there's fun stuff like the MAD Museum, the Mechanical Art and Design Museum here in Stratford. I mean, honestly, you go in there, you hover your hand over these little buttons and they come to life, but it's like old school kind of mechanical roboty things. It's just really fun. And you have these kind of exhibits and these kind of, you know, places for kids all over England. So don't miss out on those with your kids, because they're worth it. Are they cheap? Well, I'm going to tell you, for your kids, yes. For you, it might be a bit of money, but you know what? It's worth it for the memories and to see them smile. And I'll be honest, the MAD Museum here in Stratford, I mean, I still got a smile on my face from going in there, because it was just a good old time. So for example, if you're here in Bath and you go to the Roman baths, they actually have like a find and seek for the faces in the Roman baths, which is actually pretty cool. So there's lots of stuff like that for kids when you are here. And if you want to get your kids a little bit more excited about England and its history and everything, I want to tell you this. Don't pass up on watching Horrible Histories on YouTube. It's a kids focused history program, but it's really funny with songs and all kinds of stuff that gives a lot of the history of England and other places around the world. But honestly, I think Liam was more excited to come to England to like see the stuff from Horrible Histories than was anything else. And so, oddly enough, after watching all those, your kid may know more about English history than a typical English person. And oh yeah, if you're driving around like the Cotswolds or the Peak District where there's lots of up and downs and winding roads, I will say this, maybe don't forget to bring a sick bag for your kids, or maybe yourself, because with those ups and downs and those winding roads, sometimes little kids' bellies, you know, you have a few too many bath buns here with the sugar cubes in it. it might end up with a little bit of upset tummy time when you're driving around. But probably the best tour you can take with your kids when you're in England, and most likely you're going to go to London with them, is go to the Tower of London and take a Beefeater tour. They give the great history of the Tower of London and really go through it, but they have a fun time doing it. It's also a professional way, but it's one of those things that kids love it. My kids loved it. I've gone there many times. I saw many tour groups going through, and even the school kids were like, this is pretty good. But that's one tour you really should do. Those Beefeaters, thumbs up for that. They're awesome. Another fun thing about coming to England with your kids is the fact they have so many toy stores and so many candy shops that kids will love to go into, but also you as a parent get to love going there with them when you see the Paddington Bears and the Peter Rabbits, but also all the Cadbury chocolate that's out there that they could try. Just know that it might have a bigger kick than there might used to be when you're back home, because the candy here is awesome. But that's one of those nice things about it. Like, you have stuff that kids can go to. You know, like in the US, all the toy stores are pretty much gone, right? Like, but here you still have the toy stores you can go into. London has huge ones you can see, but even around towns like here in Stratford, yes, you can go see the Paddington Bear, the teddy bear store here, and you have that opportunity with your kids. And that's one of those things, because it's like going back, you know, decades ago in the US, where you still had toy stores that you could go and enjoy the toys. So don't miss out on that when you are here. Now let's talk about accommodation. Look, if you're going to be coming to England, a lot of times the hotels, the B&Bs, you have a much smaller space. So you're probably going to need to have maybe 2 rooms if you got a couple kids when you're coming here. It's not like in the US when you get a double room and it's got 2 huge beds that your family can fit in and it's okay. They are a lot smaller, so you need to consider that when you're booking your accommodation. Also, when you're booking your car, you need to remember that as well, because you may get the full-size SUV in the US, which is huge, whereas here a full-size SUV is more like a Bronco than an Explorer. Okay, so something to kind of think about in terms of the size. And when you're booking accommodation, if you need a pack and play or a crib, make sure you contact them right away. Be like, hey, we're looking to stay. Do you have one available? Can we get one? Because if you're coming here during high season, everybody likes to bring their families here. I mean, Stratford is huge for families to come visit. And hotels and bed and breakfasts do not have unlimited supplies of cribs to share, so make sure you're reserving that right away to make sure you have it. One of the nice parts of bringing your kids to England is the fact that there's a lot of discounts for kids when you're here. And it's not just for English kids, it's any kids. So you can get a really nice discount. We brought our kids here and we went to a lot of places because either the family ticket made it really economical, or just the kids were free sometimes. So make sure you're looking and see what deals they have for kids. And that also means, don't forget, England actually has quite a few kids menus as well. So the kids can go to restaurants a lot of times and get a smaller portion, and you're not having to share everything if you don't want to. So that's very nice. But I will warn you, don't think you can bring your kids to the pubs at night. You can take them to the pubs that have food during the day and until a certain time of the evening. So just be aware of that, because if you're planning to have that pub dinner, you might not be able to have it with the kids there. So probably pub grub, lunchtime stuff, okay? Now, another thing I think is important for you to think about when you're looking at accommodation when you come here is maybe look at staying at a historic inn or a B&B when you're here. Now, not every place will be happy to take children and families, but it's one you might want to look into because it's such a different experience than staying at the Holiday Inn or the Ramada Inn or something like that, that it becomes a cultural visit when you're there. And when they see an English breakfast, they go, what's all that? Believe me, once they start eating it, they're like, this is fantastic. But why is the toast only toasted on one side? Another thing that is nice when you do come here to England, there is a lot of children's programming. Like when you go to historic homes, stately homes, you go to, you know, the castles and the palaces and all kinds of stuff. There's usually something for kids to do, whether it's, you know, one of those find and seek kind of things, or it's like, hey, here's some stuff we have. They might have actors that are playing along in the parts to help the kids understand what's going on. And that's one thing that's really cool, is they do have that. It's not a no, these tours and this museum is just for adults. They do a lot of stuff to make it a more enjoyable experience for your kids when you're here, which is super nice. Another thing I want to tell you about is don't forget to have your kids try the treats, like the flake. That basically, it's a soft serve ice cream cone with this chocolate shoved into it. Kids find it hilarious here and they love it. When they're little kids here in England, you'll love it too, and your kids will as well. Also, it's a cheap treat to get them. But also, one thing I want to tell you is make sure you go to some of the bakeries and the pasty shops and stuff and go and get some of the local stuff. Like, they're probably not going to like scones because scones aren't really sweet, but you might like some of the other things that they have there that kids enjoy. So definitely check out the local treats as well, okay? So I hope this gives you a few ideas how to enjoy England with your kids, because whether they're newborn babies or teenagers getting ready to leave the house, England's got a lot for the family to enjoy. So I wish you all the best. I'll say bye from here in Stratford-upon-Avon in England.